Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Today we're going to be exploring something a little different.
A collection of journal prompts
Okay.
centered around April from the website Listallion.
Yeah.
Before you click away thinking, wait, I'm not a journal person,
Right.
stick with us
These prompts are like perfectly placed springboards ready to launch us.
into some really interesting reflections about,
Okay.
and the timing couldn't be better even if April feels ages away.
Think of this as a mental tune-up, a chance to uncover hidden patterns in your life, and maybe even have a few aha moments along the way.
Exactly.
And Listallion, the website behind these prompts, has a really encouraging vibe. They're all about self-improvement and journaling, but in a way that feels approachable and fun. And the prompts themselves are cleverly organized into themes, which we'll be using as our roadmap today.
Okay.
We won't be unpacking all 50, but we will be using a handful as springboards for a deeper conversation.
Okay, so the first section is all about April reflections, and it starts by asking about the impact of, wait for it, the weather.
I know.
That sounds basic.
Sure.
But prompt number 1 asks us to really dig into how April's weather influenced us.
What do you think? Is it really possible that something as simple as sunshine or rain can have that much of an impact on us?
You'd be surprised.
We often underestimate just how deeply weather affects us.
It's not just about grabbing an umbrella. It seeps into our mood, our productivity, even our social interactions.
You know, there's a reason why seasonal affective disorder is a recognized phenomenon. Our brains are wired to respond to sunlight. And when we don't get enough, it can lead to feelings of sluggishness or even depression.
But even without going into those clinical terms, think about it. How much more energized do you personally feel on a bright, sunny day compared to a gloomy one?
I bet there's a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
For me, sunshine is like an instant mood booster.
But beyond just our mood, I'm curious about those other areas you mentioned.
Productivity and social interactions.
How exactly does weather play a role there?
Well, imagine this. It's pouring rain outside, and you're debating whether to go to the gym or just stay curled up on the couch.
Chances are that rain is going to make that cozy couch seem way more appealing.
Yeah.
And socially.
We tend to be more drawn to outdoor activities and gatherings when the weather is pleasant.
Sunny skies just seem to lend themselves to connection and activity.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's like the weather sets the stage for our actions even if we don't realize it's happening.
Precisely.
It's all interconnected.
And that takes us nicely to prompts 4 and 5 in this April reflection section, which are all about personal growth.
Okay, so we're shifting from external factors like the weather to internal ones.
Prompt 4 asks, how have you grown personally during April? And prompt 5 follows up with, did you discover anything new about yourself?
These seem simple enough on the surface,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling they could unearth some really interesting insights.
What do you think? Absolutely.
And this is where the real magic of self-reflection happens.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day whirlwind that we forget to hit pause and ask ourselves these bigger questions.
We might be growing and changing without even realizing it. These prompts are like gentle nudges, encouraging us to acknowledge those shifts and integrate them into our self-perception.
It's like that saying, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward.
But how can our listeners, even if they didn't journal in April, use these prompts to spark that connection-making process now?
That's a great question. It's all about finding ways to make these prompts relevant to the present moment.
For example, instead of focusing on April, specifically, think about the past month.
Okay.
How have you grown in the last 30 days? What new challenges did you face? What did you learn about yourself in the process?
Okay, so we're basically swapping out April for a more recent time frame.
That makes it feel much more actionable.
Exactly.
And don't get hung up on the idea of having a definitive answer to these prompts.
It's more about the process of asking the questions and seeing what bubbles to the surface.
How about?
Okay, so we've explored the impact of the weather and dipped our toes into the waters of personal growth.
Now it's time to inject some fun into the mix with the next section, April Adventures.
And this one starts off by asking about, you guessed it, your April adventures, big or small.
What I love about this prompt is that it acknowledges that adventure is completely subjective.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our perspective and realizing that adventure doesn't have to involve a plane ticket or a perfectly curated Instagram post.
It can be found in the everyday and the seemingly mundane.
Exactly. You could have an adventure simply by trying a new restaurant in your neighborhood or taking a different route on your daily walk.
It's all about being present and open to new experiences.
I love that you bring up those examples because they perfectly illustrate the point that adventure is often found in the details.
In those moments of exploration and novelty that pepper our daily lives.
And there's something so refreshing about that, right?
It's like a reminder that we don't have to wait for a vacation to experience a sense of adventure.
We can cultivate it every single day.
Precisely. And on a deeper level, this ties into the psychology of finding novelty, which is crucial for our well-being.
When we engage in novel experiences, even small ones, our brains release dopamine, which is associated with pleasure and reward.
It's like giving our brains a little jolt of excitement and keeping things interesting.
So not only is it fun to seek out those small adventures, it's actually beneficial for our mental health.
I love that.
Absolutely. And speaking of those small pleasures, prompt number 5 in this section asks about our most memorable meal in April.
Now, I know this might seem like a bit of a curveball.
But stick with me.
Okay. A memorable meal.
I'll admit, when I first read this prompt,
I chuckled a bit.
it felt so,
Specific.
yeah.
But then I started thinking about it.
The meals that stand out, they're rarely just about the food, are they?
Exactly. Food is so powerfully connected to our senses, to memory,
Yeah.
to the people we share those meals with.
A memorable meal is like a little time capsule.
Think about it. What made that particular meal so special? Was it the company? The atmosphere? Or maybe a sense of accomplishment, like you finally mastered that recipe you'd been working on.
It's funny you should say that.
I actually have a vivid memory of a meal I ate all alone during a particularly busy week last April.
It was nothing fancy, just a simple bowl of pasta.
But I remember feeling this overwhelming sense of gratitude in that moment.
Gratitude for the food, for a few minutes of peace, for the fact that I'd managed to carve out a little time for myself amidst the chaos.
It was a powerful reminder that even the simplest things can be incredibly grounding.
I love that you brought that up because it highlights the often overlooked aspect of self-care associated with food.
Even in solitude, the act of preparing and savoring a meal can be incredibly nourishing, both physically and emotionally.
It's like hitting the reset button on your day, even if it's just for 15 minutes.
Precisely. And that takes us to a different kind of reset, which is subtly woven into the next section of these prompts: April challenges and achievements.
It's easy to focus on the highlights, but this section encourages us to examine the bumps in the road as well.
And I'm drawn to prompt number 6 in particular. What goal did you set for yourself in April that you didn't reach?
It's so easy to gloss over those unmet goals, to brush them under the rug and move on.
But I have a feeling there's a lot to be learned from leaning into those moments of...
Well-perceived failure.
I completely agree.
And the language we use is important here.
Instead of failure, what if we reframed it as feedback? Every unmet goal, every setback.
It's an opportunity for growth and learning.
Okay, so walk us through that.
Let's say someone listening had a goal in April that they didn't quite reach.
How can they turn that experience into something valuable, something that propels them forward, rather than holding them back?
It starts with curiosity, not judgment.
Instead of asking, why did I fail? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Was it a matter of setting unrealistic expectations? Did unexpected obstacles arise? Or maybe the goal itself wasn't truly aligned with your values or priorities at that time.
So it's about digging beneath the surface, understanding the why behind the unmet goal.
Exactly.
And once you've gleaned those insights, you can use them to adjust your approach, refine your goals, or even just offer yourself a bit of compassion for the journey.
That's so important, that self-compassion piece.
It's easy to get down on ourselves when we don't achieve something we set out to do.
But maybe those moments are less about failure and more about recalibrating.
Precisely.
And sometimes those recalibrations lead us to unexpected places, which brings us to prompt number 9 in this section. How did you help someone else in April?
This one always brings a sense of warmth, doesn't it?
There's something so heartwarming about reflecting on acts of kindness, no matter how big or small.
It's like this reminder that we're all connected, that even the smallest gestures can have a ripple effect.
And there's a scientific basis for that feel-good factor. In positive psychology, we talk about the helper's high.
Which refers to the rush of endorphins we experience when we engage in altruistic behavior.
So helping others actually makes us feel good.
That's amazing.
It's true. And it's not just about a temporary mood boost.
Studies have shown that engaging in acts of kindness can have long-term benefits for our mental and physical health, including reduced stress levels, increased feelings of happiness, and even a stronger immune system.
I love that.
So not only is it the right thing to do, it's actually good for us.
I'm starting to think these April prompts are full of win-win situations.
Absolutely. And speaking of win-win situations, let's dive into the April insights section where things get even more introspective.
We've looked at external influences, personal growth adventures, challenges, and even acts of kindness.
Now it's time to connect the dots.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
Lead the way. All right, so April insights.
This section feels like it's where the rubber meets the road.
Like, we've done all this reflecting.
Right. What do we actually do with all of these insights?
That's the question, right?
That's the question that we always have to circle back to.
Right.
Because insights without action are just...
They're just interesting thoughts.
they're just thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out how to bridge that gap between, okay, I've had this realization about myself.
And now what am I going to do about it?
And I feel like this section in particular,
Like even the name April Insights, it's like...
okay, we're not just reflecting, we're looking for insights.
Right.
Like we want to find those golden nuggets that we can then apply. And I love that prompt number 6 in this section.
Asks about changes we might need to make after April.
Like it's acknowledging that this isn't just a one and done deal.
Exactly.
Personal growth is a process. It's a journey.
It's a spiral.
It's messy sometimes,
Absolutely.
but we're in it.
We are.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into these April prompts,
I'm curious.
is there anything that's really standing out to you?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway for me is this idea that reflection is not a passive activity.
It's not enough to just think about these things.
Sure.
We have to be willing to do the work.
To take action, to make changes in our lives. And, it's not always easy.
But it's so worth it.
It is.
Because ultimately it's about creating a life that feels aligned and authentic and joyful. So to our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep reflecting, and most importantly, keep diving deep.
We'll see you in the next one.